We're back. Right, very quick video on a follow-up of the last protein video because so many questions came in on the back of it. So today I'd just like to answer 2 or 3 of them that were the most common ones and that arose, and quite frankly, understandably so. So very briefly, last week we were speaking about how much protein you need on any given day. We mentioned that it will depend on activity levels, stress levels, time of life, how much even sleep can affect it, right down to levels of hormones from testosterone and growth hormone in your body and all the rest. But as an overview, the recommended is a minimum of 0.5 gram of protein up to 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Now, you really do need 1 gram up to 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight to build lean body mass. Now, many often think that they may not need to build lean body mass. Very briefly, I've mentioned this time and again, but to emphasize this, we apparently lose 0.5 pound of our lean body mass a year, every year from the age of 30. That's a huge 10 pounds of our lean body mass is gone by the time we reach 50. And that's coming off everything. Skin, your biceps, your quadriceps, your heart, your brain, enzymes, eyes, everything is all affected by this breakdown of our lean tissue. So when we talk about building muscle, we are really talking about recovering and protecting what we've got. So question number 1, which came up, which was the difference between protein versus protein foods. Now, when we talk about 0.5 gram up to 1 gram, up to 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight, we're talking about pure protein. 100 grams of fillet steak has about 23 grams of pure protein. Other forms of steak can go up to 25 grams. 100 grams of chicken, and I do recommend free range organic, but 100 grams of chicken breast actually has 30.9 grams of protein. Your lentils, 100 grams, 9 grams. We mentioned this in the last talk. So when we talk about gram per pound of body weight, we're talking about the pure protein found within the food. Second thing is, that came up, the question is, does it make any difference what time of day? And the answer is yes. You can't just pile it all in the morning. Or you can, but you may not like the effects if you do. Our body's hormones shift and change from when we wake up to when we go to bed, and it does seem like our body deals with insulin very differently in the evening to the morning. So if you pile all that protein in first thing in the morning, you're likely to find you get sleepy, and not very long afterwards, you feel hungry. And the reason being, protein foods break down into amino acids and sugars. So the amino acids are the building blocks of you. So all that lovely lean tissue, basically you're one big walking block of amino acids. And the sugars literally are just like sugars you get from carbohydrate foods. Some proteins break down into sugars faster and have more access to sugars as there's more sugars naturally occurring within them than others. But for the purpose of this conversation, just assume all proteins will break down and have some sugars within them. So if you pile all that in the morning, those sugars will hit the bloodstream, you'll have an insulin spike, which is why you get sleepy, because after that you have the ghrelin, all this sugar gets pulled out of the bloodstream, you get sleepy. The ghrelin can make you crave and feel hungry afterwards. So you get a lot of the effects that you would do if you ate a lot of carbohydrate. So what you're looking at is to go lower in the morning for breakfast, gradually build it up as the day goes on, and in the evening the body seems to deal with it all very differently and it doesn't have the same effect. The other advantage of the evening is, in a few hours after that evening meal, you're going to go to sleep, and that's your body's recovery time. There's a natural growth hormone release, and that seems to be the hormone that helps utilize this protein and push it back into everything. So you've got this lovely 6 to 8 hour window where the body can now use all of this and get it back into the body where it's needed. So you get all that recovery time. You wake up in the morning then feeling stronger, basically. So lean towards higher protein in the evening. One of my favorite things to do is have a protein shake after my evening meal. On that question, the next one that came, which is related to this, is what about protein shakes before training or after training? No, don't do it. Unless you're going for a super long training session. If you're training for 45 minutes or less, I mean, quite frankly, you're not going to digest that protein and make use of it within that training session. And all that's going to happen is, like I said there, the protein breaks down into amino acids and sugars. And if you're not careful, you could end up with a little insulin spike. Which? Now, if you can just block off this little piece and pay attention to it. High intensity training in particular, and sleep, but high intensity training, there's a lovely natural growth hormone release, and that hormone seems to bring down the insulin levels, which in turn helps you target the belly fat. Now, if you take your protein shake before your training session, you can have a little bit of an insulin rise. That can prevent the growth hormone release, which can actually slow all your results down. So give it at least an hour either side of your training session, and even better will be 2 hours. An hour will actually make a big difference, but if you can give it 2, even better again. But on that, please don't not train if you've eaten or had a protein shake. Train anyway. There's other benefits, of course there are. But to get that hormonal benefit and really hit the belly fat side of it, take it away at least an hour either side. 2 hours is perfection. And last but not least is the question around creatine, and does that count? Oh my gosh, creatine does count, but it doesn't count as your gram, or gram and a half, I'm afraid, of protein, because it's not a complete protein. Creatine is part of a protein, so it's made up of some of the amino acids, but it's not a complete protein in itself. So it's a whole other little, if you like, chemical transmitter. It has a little different impact, if you like, on the body, a completely different nutrient. But it does protect your muscle mass. So it is well worth taking as an added protection. When you train, it does help your body. As we said before, it helps in other videos, it helps build up what we call ATP. It's a necessary ingredient for ATP, which are your energy molecules, which you use when you train, particularly when you weight train or do high intensity training. So when you add creatine and supplement your diet with creatine, you find that you can lift heavier weights, you can go for longer, your endurance is better, your stamina, your recovery. And in turn, that just means you train with more intensity, you recover faster, which in turn helps you build a lean body mass faster. So it has a lovely effect on both protecting and then indirectly helping you build and recover. So creatine definitely does come into the conversation, but it isn't part of that gram and a half of protein per day. So there you have it for today. Protein part 2. Watch when you have it. Start with less protein in the morning and build it up as the evening goes on. In the first video, you went through that in a little bit more detail. When I am talking protein, I'm talking pure protein. When I say protein food, I usually mean fish or meat, or those ones that are around 20 to 25% protein content. An egg has about 9 grams of protein in it. So you will need to do a little bit of the maths. And finally, don't eat or drink actually either your protein shakes or protein directly in and around your training sessions. Give a lovely gap either side. And actually, ultimately, finally, creatine does count, but it's not actually the protein. But oh my gosh, it definitely helps.